Hey everyone, welcome to the Higher Alignment Podcast. I'm your host, Minh-Thu, and I'm an executive coach focused on helping people heal their burnout and reconnect to their purpose through self-mastery. I show executives and high performers how to identify their blind spots and use this to propel them on their journey to finding more fulfillment and freedom without burning out. If you've been feeling lost and disconnected in life, book a complimentary connection call to discuss how we can get you back on the path of self-mastery and living a life that feels successful on your terms. Go to higheralignmentconsulting.com/program to book your call, and we'll see you on the other side. So I was talking with a client yesterday about the gift and the curse of being a high performer. And the gift, of course, is the fact that you are willing to do what most people won't. You are willing to be resilient and put in the extra hours and put in the extra time and be obsessed about your craft and putting out a high quality of work. And again, you're just willing to do what most people won't and have a super high level of accountability and responsibility. But then the curse of that is sometimes you care too much to the point that it becomes self-deprecating and it actually becomes shameful, and you carry a lot of disgrace about the quote unquote things that you aren't doing right. And it's like when you get to the point of degrading yourself that much, it's like what's the healthy balance? And I had experienced that. I got stuck in a trap of like feeling like that I was never doing enough as far as my healing. And I mean, I guess that attitude applied to everywhere in my life, but it's like when I started this journey of like healing myself both on a burnout level and just getting to the bottom of why I was feeling so disconnected from my life despite all the great things I had created, it was like I was constantly seeking the next modality, the next practice, the next understanding. Like I was like becoming a high performer, quote unquote, in this healing journey. And what it did is it kept me on this hamster wheel of feeling like I would never be enough. Like it's almost like when you get stuck to being addicted to healing all the time, it's like, well, then the very thing you're going after, which is to be healed, which for the record, I don't think we're ever fully healed, but to like improve the situation, it's like just constantly thinking something's wrong with you, right? And it's such a slippery slope where it's like, okay, so then again, at what point does it be completely counterproductive to exactly what I'm working towards? And, I was listening to this episode of the Modern Wisdom podcast by Chris Williamson, and he had quoted himself saying that super successful people should often be pitied rather than envied. Because for someone to do something extremely extraordinary, like I'm talking about like the top 1%, he said, what happened to them as children to think that they needed to prove their worth to this degree? And oh, that just stopped me in my tracks because, you hear some of these guys, like for instance, like Mr. Beast. He just did an interview on the Diary CEO podcast a couple months ago. And he's, obviously the number one content creator in the world. And he said, most people wouldn't want to live my life because they wouldn't want to be in my head. They wouldn't want to deal with the things that I deal with internally to be number one. Like a lot of these guys will actively admit that. And so, when I was talking with my client yesterday about this gift and the curse of being a high performer, like obviously you can put out some incredible things into the world and be renowned for some of these things, but then it's like at what cost? And that's only a question that you can ask yourself. But sometimes we think that once we become number one or once we make this amount of money, we're all of a sudden these like feelings of emptiness or lack of connection or guilt or dread or just not being happy will all of a sudden go away. And maybe momentarily they will. But if you constantly keep thinking that you're the issue and this is not enough, then it's just a constant chase and chase and chase because you're relying on something external, some type of end point to bring you this validation and this feeling of contentment. And I can tell you right now, that's a never ending race. Like you'll never stop running that. Right. So when you get stuck in this cycle, again, I know for me where it's like I constantly felt like I needed to be doing the next thing, the next fad, the next whatever to make myself feel better. It's like as you keep looking for the next thing to make you feel better, you're perpetuating the fact that something's wrong with you, right? And usually we think things are wrong with us because we maybe have some negative feelings. And I don't think negative's even a good description, but maybe you're angry, maybe you're sad, maybe you're guilty, maybe you're lonely, maybe you feel shame. These aren't negative emotions, they're just indicators of where we're at. But when you feel the stuff and you want to escape it so badly, what that's telling your body on a subconscious level is that there's something wrong with these very real raw human emotions. And if there's something wrong, then that means there's something wrong with you and you need to escape them. But what that's doing is when you feel like there's something wrong and something that you need to escape from, it perpetuates that exact same cycle, right? So, for instance, I'll use my client last night, and she had brought up the example of like, she's in the marketing world, and what makes her extraordinary at what she does is the details, the lighting, the positioning, like her work is brilliant and beautiful. And I look at her work and I'm like, damn, like I wish I could create stuff that looks that aesthetically beautiful. You know what I mean? Like she's just so good at what she does. And she had brought up this example of, someone who's assisting her in putting together a shoot, and just, there was some lighting and stuff that was off, and she was said like, hey, we need to fix this. Then everyone around her is like, well, it's not a big deal, and she's like, no, it is a big deal. And she had come to me after and said like, I just don't want to be bothered by this anymore. Like, I just need to let it go. It's not a big deal. And after we talked through it, and the first thing she said when she told me the story, she's like, you're going to think this is dumb. And after she told me, I was like, I don't think that's dumb at all. And she's like, no. She's like, you don't think I overreacted? I said, no. I said, because this is what makes you great at what you do. You care about the little things, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with your reaction. I said, I think what we have to look at a little bit deeper here is the fact that your discomfort with the situation and the fact that you didn't like how you felt when it happened, or you were judging and shaming yourself for the reaction that you had, that's what we need to look at, because you don't like the fact that they even got to you to that point. So you want to get away from having to feel that shame or judgment you had towards the fact that you were unhappy with a certain situation. I said, why do we have to get away from that at all? Because it's a very human response that you had. And when you shame yourself for having these real human responses, that perpetuates the fact that you think there's something wrong with you. When every human being was designed to have these reactions. We were designed to feel sadness. We were designed to feel anger. We were designed to feel frustration and all these things. And every time we deny ourselves of that, or every time we think, I need to no longer respond this way, we're reinforcing the fact that we think there's something wrong with us. And I think that's the curse of being a high performer, is we think that there's always something wrong with us. It's one thing to think, hey, I can improve. It's another thing to shame yourself into thinking this is bad. And that's the nuance. That's the slight difference. You know what I mean? The compassionate response would be, hey, I did the best with what I could in the moment. Wasn't maybe my best moment, but hey, I can learn from it. The shame would be like, why did I respond that way? I'm going to look like such an idiot. They're going to think I can't control my emotions. They're going to think I'm too sensitive. Like, why did I do that? Both are accountable, but one carries this heavy, shameful, tone to it, which just further perpetuates the cycle that something's wrong with us. Where the other one is compassionate, it holds space, and it still holds yourself accountable to improving, or maybe having a different reaction in the future, right? But it's that slippery slope of shame that I see so many high performers dealing with. Every single one of my clients, I dealt with it for a long time. I'm getting a lot better at it. But that slippery slope of shame is so unproductive, and it's such an energy suck. Like, it's like a constant leak in the background when we're constantly shaming ourselves. And it's like, no matter what you do, if shame's attached to how you function at work, how you function in your relationships, whether you're doing a good enough job, like, you'll never feel good about it. Because in the background is this like yucky, heavy energy that keeps you stuck in this cycle. And so when we look at the quality of our work and being a high performer and all these things. All right, if you're a burnt out executive or high performer, chances are you're on a 3 to 4 month cycle of burnout, meaning the first few months you're high energy, productive, and making it happen. And then once that third or fourth month sets in, you're exhausted, irritable, snappy, and ready to give it all up. Now, there are two main reasons you get stuck in this cycle that no one talks about when it comes to stress management information out there. So I've put this together in a short video called The Real Reason You're Burnt Out. I put it in the show note links, so take the 12 minutes to watch this video and let this be the first step to you getting off this hamster wheel of burnout. All right, guys, back to the episode. You don't have to shame yourself to still be a high performer. That's like saying the only way you can get anything done is by being in a toxic relationship. No. You can still perform at a high level and have a healthy relationship with how you hold yourself accountable and how you talk to yourself. Like think about even we've all had bosses or coaches or whether it's sports or in the workplace, where you have that one boss who says something once, you're like, yeah, all right, done. I want to work for this person. I want to win with this person. So they got to tell me once and I'm going to make the adjustment. And then you have other bosses or coaches and then you're like, oh God, this guy again, I got to hear from him again. We get it. Can you just leave us alone? Can this meeting just end? You just want to get away from them. And the only reason you even do what they say is so you can keep them away from you. Right? But then you have the boss who tells you once, yeah, I just want to yes, this is the team I love to be on. I love to win with these people. I like to figure things out because we're a team. There's trust, there's admiration, there's respect, because he's not shaming you into getting the job done. Right? Or she's not shaming you into getting the job done. Right? And it's so when we're looking at the relationship with ourselves, if you constantly think that there's something that you always need to be doing to better yourself, that's half the problem, is thinking that you're not enough the way that you are. And that doesn't mean that you don't continuously ask yourself questions or be curious or hold yourself accountable. Again, it doesn't mean you get rid of any of that. But if you constantly keep thinking something's wrong with you, you're never going to end this chase. Just like if you think that this next goal is going to be the one and then you chase the next one, it's the same thing. It's the same thing in the healing aspect, right? So sometimes the best thing you can do for your healing journey is just let yourself be. Just let yourself be in the moment and not try to cater your responses or be perfect in your responses. Let the raw humanness come out. And half the time when you let it come out in the moment organically, you're able to move on from it way faster because you're able to process what's actually happening. Right? But if you try to hold everything in, if you try to suppress everything and just come off of this as this prim, polished person all the time, you're bypassing your experience as a human being. And what that bypassing does by you trying to hold it in, it's telling you that there's something wrong with your reaction. And there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, maybe don't go be violent towards someone, or don't maybe go unleash a whirlwind on someone. But then at the same time, with the exception of violence, we're not condemning that. But if you have a big reaction towards someone, ask questions about why your reaction's so damn big. Don't be oh, I shouldn't have done that. Don't shame yourself for how you reacted. Once you've reacted, go back and ask wow, why did I react to that? Right? Use it as a learning tool. Get curious about it. Don't try and control it. If you try to control the reaction, all that's doing is, again, reinforcing the fact that you have no control internally. Where if you have the reaction and you can get curious about why did I respond that way, and you can start to get to the root cause of it, now we have a chance of actually improving the relationship you have with yourself and actually getting to a point of being okay, I actually feel more in tune, more in control, more secure and grounded with my responses, whatever those may be. But if you keep thinking that when you have a little bit of an outburst, or you're a little bit more animated or a little bit more passionate about something, that something's wrong with you when you have those responses, all you're going to stay is on this cycle of being reactive and never feeling like you're enough. You constantly judge yourself for every reaction you have. And that, my friends, is so draining and so exhausting. And I'm telling you, because I lived there for years and I still deal with it to an extent. You know what I mean? It's not nearly as bad, but it's just, it sucks the joy out of life when you're constantly judging your responses and your reactions. And I'm not saying that in a way to permit just saying, "Ooh, it's a wild west and you can do and say whatever you want to people." I'm not saying that either, because if you're also at that point, then you also, again, you need to ask some questions about why your reactions are so strong. And you guys have all heard me say that, like, if other people's opinions trigger you to the point of you losing your cool consistently, you are dysregulated, you are burnt out, and you are not in a position of power. Like that is telling you something about you, not about them. If someone's responses, if someone's opinions trigger you to the point of you losing control, that says more about you than it says about them. Okay? Shows that you're in survival mode, shows that you're extremely dysregulated. Okay? So I'm not saying that in a way to permit you just like unloading on people and doing whatever the heck you want. That is not okay either. But if you keep suppressing things in, that's just as unhealthy as the person who's constantly having these big reactions. Okay. The point is, when you're suppressing or when you have them, is we need to ask deeper questions about why we feel so bothered, why we feel so ashamed, why we feel like, why did we have to react to that point? And then from there, we can start getting to the root cause. And from there, we can start becoming more secured and more balanced in our responses. Okay. So what I'm saying is the blessing of being highly accountable as a high performer. Don't use that in a way that's counterproductive and shameful to you. Use your accountability as a tool to understand yourself better so that you can actually get to the root cause, so you don't feel like you need to always respond perfectly, or that you're not safe to have some real raw human reactions. Because again, we are all designed to have these reactions in some way, shape, or form. And the more controlled we are within ourselves, the more autonomy and balance and groundedness we have within ourselves, the less those animated reactions have to come out. All right, guys, thanks for tuning into another episode of the Higher Alignment Podcast. If you got something out of this episode, I would ask that you please go subscribe and leave the podcast a 5-star review so that it can help find its way to other people who are having a hard time and need support. My mission in life is to help executives realize that you don't need to suffer in silence while still performing at a high level. I want to help free people of the heavy pressure they carry on a day-to-day basis, and having more people listen to this podcast will do just that. So wherever you listen to this, please go leave it a 5-star review, hit subscribe so you never miss another episode, and we'll see you in the next one.